was really cool. So I went with it anyways. And one other note, I did make this presentation with Gamma. So, I was thinking if it would be more uh, disingenuous if I didn't do it with Gamma or if I did it through AI. And again, sort of I went with what was easier and saved me more time, which was AI, which is sort of what you should do as well. But moving towards Jordan's PvP framework. So essentially, the PvP framework launched by Jordan actually very just this year is sort of a consequential follow-up to the PQS, which we'll touch base on later, which is essentially a pain qualified segment. So the permissionless value proposition is about changing outbound from like asking them for time or interrupting them to sort of value first messaging. And in sort of Jordan's own words, using AI to uniquely give them a combination of data that, when compiled together, gives them something that is independently valuable, it is actionable for them right now, and does not require them having a product in the first place. So it's messaging that by itself is extremely valuable to the point that they would actually pay to receive it, regardless of if they ever use a product or not. So that is sort of what Jordan's come up with in sort of the PvP framework. Coming more towards, uh, yeah, so it's working now. So what exactly is a PvP? So as I said earlier, it's a message that is so valuable that the prospect would pay to receive it, and it gives us immediate value through insights that are often derived from publicly available data. So again, it's giving them actionable insight without ever having met them before. So it's not like warm outreach, it's still very much cold, but it actually plays into sort of dissociating yourself in sales. So even though Jordan, and actually there's another guy, Josh Braun, which is sort of all about messaging and positioning and sort of, detaching yourself from the sales outcome. And even though Jordan, they and Josh don't see eye to eye, it's actually, somewhat templated after that, whereas you give them value up front and then you dissociate. So you're not asking them for the call, you're not asking them for the product, you just sort of give them that value up front. And again, it's all powered through insights that you drive through data. So it's permissionless. So in Jordan's own words, it's using AI to uniquely combine valuable data that gives you like information asymmetry. So it's the information is only accessible to you. It's not something that you can sort of see on the first try. And if you can see it on the first try, it's likely not a PvP framework. So it's something that you're likely to believe that they themselves don't know about their service. So, and it also sort of boils down back to our initial PQS framework. It's that it's for a very, very pain qualified segment. So the list is the message, and the list itself dictates everything that happens after it. So the first step is essentially finding out exactly what the pain is and who are the prospects that are facing it, and everything else sort of falls in line itself. So the list is the message. That is what you need to sort of focus on, and that will be sort of your guide throughout the process. And again, there are sort of some key characteristics of a PvP, and this will come in more handy as we build out our hackathon and sort of on our own use cases too. But again, as I said earlier, this is sort of the most fundamental principle that it should be independently useful without ever needing a sales call or a purchase. So it's purely and purely for the prospect's benefit, and that's the framework that you need to keep in mind when you're doing it. At the same time, though, it needs to be tied to your solution as well. So it needs to be naturally a gateway that leads to your product. So just based on that value, if it's actionable, if it actually impacts the business, they should want more of it. And when they want more of it, that is when they come towards your product. It's sort of how he envisions it. So again, it highlights a pain point that actually your product addresses. It's not something that's completely unrelated. So if you're talking about sort of reducing cost of customer acquisition, you can't be talking about something that has to do with ops or internal ops. And even if you give them insight that is extremely valuable, it's not related to what your product offers. So it's still the pain point that you address, but it frames it in the prospect's world. So it's all about them and sort of just being about us. And one other key characteristic is that, again, it has to have at least two to five unique data sources. So it can't sort of even be close matches, because previously Jordan even said that even if you don't have those insights, maybe you can sort of, find something that works parallel to it, and then position your messaging accordingly. But right now, it's actually about no. It has to have some data sources to code. It has to have that data tied in the messaging, and only then would it ever be truly a PvP. Because otherwise, one of your competitors or the prospect themselves can sort of easily find that themselves. And lastly, again, and most importantly, there is no gatekeeping. We don't ask them if they want this. So the messaging itself should never say that, can we share this with you? You sort of just share that up front. So it's like a helpful tip more so than sort of, a sales pitch is how you need to think of it. And lastly, there's a checklist, and the checklist dictates that it should pass essentially 3 tests for it to be a PvP. Does it reveal something that they care about but don't know about? Does it sort of demonstrate expertise or data that they lack? And also, would a busy prospect that, regardless of if they want to go with this or not, would thank us for sending this message? And if it fulfills all three, you have like a top class PvP on your hands. Perfect. So the funny thing is, there's a way to get to the PvP, and there's another sort of framework to get to the PvP. And Jordan himself says that, if you don't sort of name your things, they become less credible. So to get to the PvP, you have to find framework, and the find framework essentially sort of is a 4-step process. So the first process is essentially just the focus process, which is about locating that existential data point. So when we talk about the PQS, the pain qualified segment, is actually backed by like an existential data point. So it becomes a bit wordy there, but essentially what it means is that these prospects that we say are fit our PQS, they fit it because we know something about them that some data or some research tells us. So essentially, you can either map it by if you have like a prospect and a company that where you're targeting sort of folks that have launched 3 new products just this week, and only the ones that fit that criteria, those are your PQS, and they fit your existential data point. It won't be that simple. Usually it would have some complexity tied to it, but essentially your PQS needs to be backed by data, and that data, which is different from the 2 and 5 data points that we combine later on, that data point would be called the existential data point, the EDP. And Jordan envisions this replacing the ICP format, as sort of a guarantee in times to come. The next step is sort of investigate. And the investigate step is like, this is where you find these 2 to 5 unique data sources, which together shed light on their pain. And usually, if you've seen Jordan's examples, these data points are almost always publicly available information, actually sort of a core requirement that these data points need to be publicly available. And usually they include like public databases, sort of, uh, tenders, expiring tenders, things like that. And often some of them would have APIs, some of them won't. But it's about, again, finding that information asymmetry. It's data that the prospects themselves are very unlikely to go out of the way and find and put together and create something out of it. So it's data points that are publicly available always, but again, they're not sort of, upfront on surface data points that anyone would think about. The third step is sort of the narrate point, and this is sort of about like how do you combine those data points to create like a message, which is again so valuable that they pay you to receive them in theory, and it's always about discovery or result. It's never about your product. You don't even mention it anywhere in the message. And again, for all of these 3 and 4, actually, we have Jordan's actually shared his different prompts. So actually, I have that library with me, and after the call, I can share that with you guys too. And he also mentions, which prompt suits which model the best. But ideally, if sort of do them in sequence, and you do that in a very warmed up chat, you will get eventually to that array point. The deploy point, actually, this is where the prompt is less helpful. This is more about how do you scale it. Do you do it within Clay, and do you do it within like maybe sort of GPT's own agent? But it's about how do you scale this pragmatically, and that is when the deploy comes in, and it's sort of where your GTM skills sort of come into play as well. I've just realized I've talked way too much, so I might have to sort of skim through some stuff. But here are a couple of examples of what a good PvP looks like. So in the first example, which would be the Texara equipment rental, which is sort of, about helping construction companies, actually companies that rent out equipment. It's a software to manage that. And the PVP essentially is about for Maximum Construction, which is like, hey, Maximum Construction, which is like our prospects ICP has a permit for a project starting next week, but they haven't actually filled out any equipment transport permits. They help them out with that, and we sort of share that information with them. So hey, your ideal prospect, they need you right now, and here's their contact information. And similar is the case here, right? So this is more for like a construction company, construction management software, whereas we like there's 44 million project that's about to happen in your backyard, which needs your facade materials. Here's the entire contract list with the direct contacts. So, and we leave with that. We don't sort of, tell them, yeah, if this makes sense, our product has actually more of these, but no, sort of, just leave them with this. And, we sort of expect that just as a consequence of things, perfect. If no one else, here's a few pitfalls to what I'll actually sort of skim through this. Again, I think we know what a PQS is and what a PVP does. PQS is sort of that exact segment which is is experiencing that pain. The PVP builds on top of that and actually leaves them with value. A few, I think, more important ones that you need to avoid is again leading with solutions. Is sort of, I think we've covered most of as well. We don't pitch the product, we give them value, and we leave. And also more about, I think this sort of answers Enoch's question as well. Is like we don't target domain experts, so we wouldn't in our message tell like a CTO like how to do their job. So it won't be something about oh actually you're doing this wrong and this is how you can do it. It's more about like very current. So it has to be more like an episodic pain than a systematic pain. So it's not something that they've been dealing with for like 3 years and they haven't been able to solve. It's more about, oh, something just happened, something changed last week, and this is how it impacts you, and this is what you can do to fix it. So it's more about what's more current and what's something that is more prevalent to them right now versus something that they're struggling with for a year or it's just that their expertise and you expect them to solve it. And also again, it has to be about using that data in tandem. So it can't just be something that anyone can replicate or they themselves would already know. In theory, at least, sometimes they do already know, but in theory, it's you expect them not to know this beforehand. Perfect. So I have one example which I guess sort of want you guys. I want me to walk you through, which is about Housecall Pro. So this is again an HVAC management software, and this is sort of the message that we will leave with is actually sort of very clever. So this is to sort of helps them manage their existing contracts, uh, the current project management. So it's more so very high level, but the message we leave with actually it's something that's sort of just a small section of our service too. So in that sense, the segmentation is actually sort of very intuitive. So the challenge is like HVAC companies, a big part of the business can be equipment replacement. So which sort of only happens every sort of 15 to 20 years. And many small contractors don't actually track these long-term upsell chances. They miss out on these jobs. And the way that sort of we do it is sort of not even for cold outreach. So we already have internal data, sort of these parts companies, because we've worked with them before, but they're not current customers. So using that CRM data, we know when sort of they last onboarded customers and combine that with public permit data, we sort of create that information asymmetry. So they wouldn't exactly know that someone close to them that they previously serviced is actually now uh, ending their current lease and would need a renewal, but we sort of give them those sort of three high upsell opportunities. So again, all of those opportunities would have like information with them. So addresses, install dates, system age, revenue estimates, it would all have them. But again, this is not information that you can sort of, conjure up very easily. You have to sort of, put some time in, find that data, and then sort of, identify which prospects would be relevant for each of them. And we sort of have another example of how it looks too. So again, we found few of your past installation projects. from like almost some more than 2 decades back, and that are coming up now on those 2 decades. And our record shows that no contractor and services systems, these three jobs alone, like it presents a value of like roughly 600K. Like if that is actually true, if all of that holds, like that's sort of it's insane value. And if someone reads this message, like odds are they will respond one way or another. So in theory, what Jordan says does really make sense. But to Juan's point, there are like some real challenges. So one sort of the first being is that again it works only when you have that data with you. So data rich, problem rich environments where there's like a lot of public data exists, and namely healthcare is one, finance is one, heavy industry is one. So we see a lot of construction examples. It is for a reason. It's like these very regulated industries are like the sort of the best targets because they have lots of data, their reports, filings, compliance data, and all of that data you can mine for. So in each instance, you can actually sort of find what you need as well. Another actually very good data would be sort of anyone that's in vertical SaaS. So if you're sort of selling into one particular sort of industry, it's only that industry that you work, you have like a much higher chance of succeeding because again, it works very well when you know your customers well and if you can pull data from public well. So one sort of caveat to all of this is that to all of these prompts and to sort of all uh, the schema that we run is that Jordan always mentioned he has like a very popular phrase is like be the guide, not the river. So you have to actually validate all of it. So whatever the AI spews out, you need to sort of either work with your client or work if you're doing it for yourself, work with your own internal data and see if what you're saying actually validates and holds true. So if the message that it gives out, there's no guarantee that it's a great message. You need to put your own lens on and see if you send this to a prospect, would it make sense or not? And if it doesn't, then you need to change it. So you have to be that layer of verification at all times throughout the system. And again, it works in regulated industries. It works very great within vertical SaaS. But again, if you have a service that is sort of like anyone for it's something for everyone, you will have trouble sort of dealing with it because again, you can still sort of do it, and the way to do it would be sort of that sort of segmentation. So you pick one vertical and you only talk about that, and you only sort of focus and create a PPP around that one vertical and one pain. But you just have much higher chance of succeeding if you only sell into one vertical in the first place. So that's sort of one thing. And again, it also has like a volume issue too. So you can't sort of scale this and send like 450 emails a day as we do. It's sort of almost impossible. It's more about a very quality focused, very sort of leading with information data, and also like it's expensive, right? So if you're enriching that so many data points and you're working through your messaging, it will take a cost. So it's not something where you sort of send out emails that take a very high volume. It's more about like a very targeted, very focused, very narrow approach as well. And again, as Juan again said, you need to have the data. If there isn't data available, you're out of luck, and you're sort of more uh, uh, inclined to lean towards sort of just a PQS segment and work through that. But you have to have that data, and importantly, you need to have those AI tools and data skills to work with. You know how to scrape that data. You know which libraries to look into. You know your way through Clay. So those are all sort of requirements to make this in the first place, or sort of scale this periodically as well. So yeah, it does have some limitations. It's not without fault, and that is sort of where we are right now. But yeah, that is all in terms of my side and the presentation. But any questions there so far, or like to end it?
Yeah, I appreciate the all aspects of the presentation. I I think thinking about the scalable model is like, whenever you're doing client service delivery, it's always like, oh, can this can this be scalable for more than a week? And you're like, wait, damn. But I think one of the best things is that, when the more you pour yourself into looking at PQS or PvP, it's almost like it's almost like the Alex Hormozy extremism. It's like you don't have to work 7 days a week, 12-hour days, but like for someone who stands for the ideal of, the tireless worker, and you do need to put in the more volume and more work. It's like if someone just buys into that ideal, they'll probably work harder. And in the same fashion, I find that Jordan stands for the ideal of taking this to the absolute extreme of outbound, which is PvP. And so even if we like think about these or try to like add in subtle like elements of this, then I think most people will become better outbounders
Yeah,
as a result. I wonder if
yeah,
you could just touch
totally.
on like, yeah, just the contrast of, PQS for PvP versus PvP, and then like, the difference in scalability there, because I find that, PQS, I don't know what Jordan says, but is it 2 to 5 data points for PQS that you have to have? And I think that, if you take that lens, sometimes it can be a bit more scalable, because I think most people think when they first get introduced into outbound, they think of one data point like, oh, funded companies. But even if you just jump
Yeah,
to two, like that's already like a bit of a better enhancement.
yeah. So there's sort of two ways to look at that. So there's one PQS that if you're sending it volume, you can do, which is sort of more about okay, companies within like the 20 to 100 headcount that have just made a hire and also have like a streaming service that we're sending like a debugging tool. That's sort of one thing. But Jordan actually says that that's more theatrical and tells me nothing actually. So the way he looks at a PQS would be like, and actually I have sort of an example with me too. So a PQS message would essentially be like, I notice you use like an old security tool. Have you patched the two recent vulnerabilities? Many haven't since it's maintained by one guy in Lake Tahoe who might be water skiing instead of fixing bugs. And here's how we do it. So that's sort of a PQS, which still actually uses like those two data points. So it's still about like you use that old security tool. There has been like two recent security leaks associated with that tool. What are you doing to fix it? Whereas like a PvP for that more so would be like I actually went ahead, ran a scan on your public server and found like three critical open ports that pass tool isn't fixing, and here's the report on how you can fix it. So that's sort of what a PvP does. So a PQ is actually sort of like an extension and like a more narrowed and refined and data enriched version of like the smart segmentation that we've now started for clients. So it's more about yes, I need to segment it very smartly, but that segmentation needs to be backed by data and the same 2 to 5 data points, and also more about like it has to be relevant to current data more so than just infographics and headcounts in your industry and things like that.
Nice. I am going to cut off the Q&A a little bit short. If anyone has questions, please just reach out to myself, Thomas, or Ali. I want to give Thomas some time to give us a little bit of context about the company that we're going to be doing outbound for. Thomas is just going to act as the client. He's going to be like the main POC. Yeah, Thomas, feel free to take it away.
All right. Yes. So I wanted to pick something that was fun. It was also maybe somewhat manageable. And I'm pretty sure has some good juicy data out there about the company. So let me just grab the company domain here. I'll put that into the chat. I did kind of make a classic onboarding form or of responses as well. So Enoch, should I give them the onboarding form responses, or should they like ask it one by one?
No. Just feel free to give it. That would probably easier.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean I was trying to toe the line of being like, not the most advanced client, like I'm giving you away like a good offer or anything. So I'm just putting that in the in the chat. Let me know if you can access that. But yeah, essentially the company is called ChargePoint. So they're a full stack EV charging platform. They combine the hardware, software, the services, um, as well as the driver network. They do have an app connected to that as well. So, who is this for? Electric vehicles are kind of up and down, especially state to state. That's not an Easter egg or clue at all. And this is for fleets, commercial real estate, even like multifamily homes or small apartment complexes, retailers, the hospitality industry, any sort of parking operators. Can be for workplaces, corporate campuses, even universities. And then sort of also integrates with like utilities, municipalities, builders, and contractors too. So there is a number of different directions you can take this in. I did leave a couple examples there just so you can sort of picture where they integrate. They're definitely one of the biggest players in the space as well. And so I did leave a section on what is the value, what they provide. Yeah. So some good stuff there. There's some compliance aspects. It's pretty simple, pretty effective, easy for setup. Again, for the people that are setting it up, they can generate some revenue through that. So there's potential through that as well. But yeah, most of this should be covered in the document too. And then how they differentiate, because there are some pretty big players in the space too. The other thing too is that interesting is some of their competitors may only be US based. So these guys are US and Canada based. And I'm pretty 99% sure regulations change between US and Canada for EV charging as a whole. So yeah. Any other key things that you guys would like to know, please ask me.
Nice hints. I think maybe take some time to digest, and then if you have questions, feel free to come to me or Thomas, probably Thomas. But yeah, last thing before we kind of break out here. As a reminder, we do have another speaker at 1 p.m. PST. The most important rule that you must remember is to have fun. Let those creative juices flow. If you need guidance on strategy, if you need help building a workflow, ask me or Thomas. If you want to get access to a certain tool that we don't have access to, message me and Ronnie. We are going to probably just stay here, to be honest. So yeah, feel free to reach out to us if you need anything.
So within the map, does everyone just go to their own little booth, or how does that work? I'm assuming they don't want to share ideas.
Yeah. It's first come, first serve. Go claim your territory. The booth, yeah, probably don't use it here because everyone can hear you. It's not like a secluded space, I think. So
I'll hang out in the booth, I guess.
Same here.
Yeah.
But cool. Yeah, the company has like unlimited ICPs. Super excited to see what you guys come up with.
Cool. We should go now.
Yeah, let's break.
Sounds good.
You guys.